Good morning. Today we're going to be integrating Google Analytics into Claude Code just so we can run agents recurring on a recurring basis, whether that be reporting, conversions, etc., demographic insights, things like that. So if you are a marketer, you know the struggle of, just historically how much Google Analytics has changed. The ability to now manually create or automatically create events, just the data layers and everything like that. It used to be a pretty complex task, but not anymore. Now, it's pretty straightforward, but with that, it's gotten even easier with Claude. You can just ask questions of which state has driven the most sessions, engagement time per blank, and it's just amazing now. So why would you want to connect Google Analytics into Claude? Pretty easy, faster access to answers. So you're not dashboard hunting anymore. Back in the day, you used to ask why conversions would drop last Tuesday. You used to have to open GA4, build out that custom report, export everything, maybe putting it into a pivot table in a spreadsheet. But now with the connecting it to Claude, just ask the question, get an answer, plain language. This it really collapses a process that used to take 15 to 30 minutes into really what is now a single prompt. So another reason you would want to do it is non-analysts can really take advantage of this situation now. So before GA4's interface, somewhat of a learning curve, but I think it's somewhat kind of intuitive. But I think now it's just significantly easier. You don't even need to go in there and play with this with the software. But most people on a marketing or an ops team don't know how to build a custom exploration or even a segment. So that natural language means that anyone can ask what our top traffic source is this month without knowing GA4's entire user interface or query syntax. Another reason is just analysis can happen alongside other work. So if you're already using an AI assistant to draft content, write code, manage a project, pulling those analytics into that same conversation means you can connect data directly to those decisions. For example, here's last month's traffic data. Now help me decide which blog topics to prioritize. So without having to switch context, manually copy and paste numbers between those tools. Another one is just it enables recurring automatic reporting. So instead of someone, in the past having to manually build a weekly traffic report, an agent can be scheduled to pull the data, summarize it automatically, freeing up yourself or whoever else wants to use it, time for that actual strategy instead of report assembly. And last one, it closes the loop between output and outcome. So any business producing content, running campaigns, shipping features benefits from knowing what actually works. So wiring analytics into the same system that plans or produces that work makes it more likely the data is actually going to inform the next decision instead of sitting unread in a report that, as well as I do, that most people are never going to open. The only thing to be conscious of is that you are granting this AI tool access to not really customer data, but it is business data. Again, most of it is not PII or anything like that. So I'm fine with it. I think if you're willing to connect Claude Code to your CRM or to any other business facet, I think you're exposing much more data, but just something to be cautious of if that is a restraint that you would have. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So I'll give you a little overview here of what we're going to get into. It's really just 7 steps. Number 1, these are just going to be things that you're going to be installing into Claude Code. Create the project, enable the APIs, authenticate, install the analytics package, register with Claude Code, verify the connection. So I believe Google Analytics also has, when you go to their login page, since I go to the MCP server, install from GitHub, and see the announcement. So let's see what that looks like. Google Analytics MCP. Amazing. Server uses Google Analytics admin API to provide several tools for use. Run report, run funnel report, get account summaries. Wow, they even have a tutorial. Setup involves configuring Python, enabling APIs, configuring credentials. Wow, configuring Gemini. We'll go with this guy, with our buddy Claude Code. So one of the things that I've learned about installing any sort of MCP onto Claude Code is as easy as going like this. Just go ahead and copy that, and let's see how far it can get on its own. All right, so let's see what we have here. Local, it looks like it is. Let's go with this guy, and let's say, boom. Let's install this so I can run a query whenever Okay, let's see how far it'll get. But it does a pretty good job by itself, so it kind of reads the documentation instead of having to manually go through all those steps. All right, so here has been our first hang up. It is asking me about the Google Cloud project. If you're not familiar with Google Cloud, it's where a lot of their APIs are stored. So it's, you want to do anything with Google Calendar, Gmail, Google Analytics, things like that. Basically, if you want to access Google's APIs, it's all going to live within a Google Cloud project. And then you enable APIs at that project level. I've done it a lot. I'll be honest, it's still a little bit confusing, but let's see. I believe I have one for, we'll use OAuth. Yeah, let's go with OAuth. Okay, so let's go over here. In the meantime, what's the Google Cloud project ID? Let's go into Google Cloud. Definitely have one set up. Let's see, got a lot of them. Let's do the KCTVM scheduler. Alrighty, so let me hop back, right back in where we were yesterday. It is a continuation, but so here are the 7 steps on how to do this. A lot of this is going to be prompting into Claude Code, and then just a little bit of help on the manual side, which is setting up the APIs, is what it seems like. So initially I had pulled a separate set of instructions on how to do this, but then I had realized that Google Analytics actually has its MCP, and it's interesting, they also have a YouTube video, but you should totally watch mine. And so again, I had already copied this and pasted this into Claude Code over here. And so what's the Google Cloud project ID? So that's where we are. So it's asking me to set that up. So let's make sure here we can just run through the APIs, enable the APIs in your project, and then we'll have to probably do an OAuth client. And this sounds really intimidating, but I hope you know this. It's just like nomenclature for using APIs and things like that. And thankfully, if you do get lost, just ask Claude where to find things. But yeah, all right, so let's hop right in. So it's gonna say go to the, what did Claude Code? Claude Code specifically asks Google Cloud project ID where you want. Okay, so let's go to Google Cloud. I already have a project set up. If you don't, it's pretty easy to do there. I'm gonna use this KCTVM scheduler one, enabled APIs. And it says to enable the following APIs: Google Analytics Admin API, Google Analytics Data API. Okay, so then you just go over to Library once you're here, Google Analytics, and it said Admin and Data. Easy. So let's enable that. Great. Let's go back and let's do the data one, enable. So they should both be enabled. Now there's a lot of other stuff you have to do on the back end. So let's go to enabled APIs, Google Analytics, Google Analytics. All right, awesome, cool. So let me call that KCTVM scheduler is the name of my project. I will copy this, put it up here, see if it finds it. It may or may not actually find the, let me continue with that. All right, so we've enabled the API and it's giving you some more steps. So we'll go into the project, configure the OAuth, choose external, fill in an app name, click create credentials, OAuth client ID, desktop app, name it anything, download the JSON, save that file somewhere findable. Okay, all right, so let's do that. Open and copy the link here. So it says, I believe there's multiple OAuth. So you see there's an OAuth consent and then the OAuth client ID. I believe it's always that client ID. If prompted, configure the OAuth consent screen. Back in the credentials, click choose external. If this is a workspace or fill in an app name. Okay, I think it's, I've configured this a long time ago, but I think I should be good. Okay, cool. I think I'm good. Let me go back over here. Hello, cat. How are ya? So we're gonna hit create credentials right up here. OAuth client ID, right? Desktop app. Whoop. Desktop app. We'll call it Google Analytics MCP. Create. Here we go. I will have to blur this out. Download that JSON. Amazing. Save that file somewhere. Just tell me the path, or just say done if you saved it to GA MCP client. I did not. So let me say, let me tell it where I saved it. I didn't save it anywhere. Put it in my Claude Code project or code file. Copy this guy, documents, Claude Code. I'll create a file, call it Google Analytics MCP folder. Boom, info, install, JSON. I do that. Let's go back. It's the wrong button. Resend that link. Okay, let's do it right this time. Continue, select all, give your data away. All right, authenticated, good to go. So now we should be good to go. It took a lot less time than I thought. All right, so let's give it a shot. For Kansas City TV mounting, how many users came to the site in the last 30 days? Let's see. Need to start a new Claude session for the tools. Once you do, just ask again. All right, let's do that, and I'll be able to query it directly. So let's just go ahead and do, interesting. Okay, fully quit and restart. All right, so let's do that. Do that, see what we get here. Let's try a new one. Using Google Analytics to Kansas City TV mounting, 30 days. Let's see what we got is happening here. Let me go back over here. As always, let's see how much usage we are burning through. Not terrible, honestly. All right, I'm fine with that. Okay, let me close out of this. Quit. Redo Cloudy boy. Cloudy. Let's try it again. Let me take that prompt. Let me see if I do this. Okay, let's try it here. Right, so we finally got some data, but let's see. Got this by driving the Analytics MCP server directly. It works fine. The chat apps tool registration layer wasn't fuzzy property name matching. Any session. Okay, so let's see. Let's make sure that that is correct. Confirmed working end to end. Great. Using Google Analytics, how many sessions came from Missouri in the last 2 weeks for Kansas City TV mounting? All right, let's see if it's true. Massachusetts, that's great. We love that. Okay, well, look at that. So it does look like we were able to finally set it up. Let me ask it here. So what went wrong and why to resolve this without running into this issue? So anecdotally, it seems like what fixed it was recopying and pasting the GitHub repo. So if you run into something, basically what I did the first time is just drop the link in, but really this time I ended up just copying everything in here, I think, for some additional. Okay. We followed those and they worked. Specific app only loads tools from mechanism number 1. They never consult .claude JSON's local source. Incident in the registry confirmed by searching. Okay. Skip the app's tool loading entirely. Okay, so this is the solution. Install the server persistently, write a thin CLI wrapper around it, and call that via bash instead of expecting it as a native tool. Okay, can't say I understand most of that, but that's your solution, and that's why I build in public, because as straightforward as these things seem, despite having a whole guideline, you always run into things like this, and this is what gets that project over the finish line. So really going back, you had to go into the Google Cloud Console and create the project if you haven't already. Enable those APIs. You'll have to do billing if you haven't done that. That's a part I kind of skipped over. Then from there, enable the Google Analytics data API, and it was the admin API. Then create the OAuth, download the JSON, drop it into a folder. And maybe that's where I've run into some issues, is maybe how I set up the folder. But then just tell Claude that you have everything, give it the permissions it needs, recopy and paste that repo, and then this is that final thing to get it over the line for anybody. So now at any point, you can always call Google Analytics and get that direct report and the direct access. So hope you learned as much as I did. As somebody who does marketing, this is extremely useful for anything. You can tie this into other workflows. So excited to see what comes of this guy, but hope you had some fun and I hope you learned something. Thanks so much. See you guys. Bye.